Okay, guys, so we're back with segment 2 of episode 8 of Pro Tools Authority. We've been discussing MIDI data, including the MIDI notes and clips view. So let's talk about MIDI notes view first. So all you have to do is click on your selector and select notes to make sure you're in that mode before we begin, right? So I'm going to go over to my selector here on my instrument track, and I am in notes right now, but you could click, like if you were on clips, for example, click and just select notes. So MIDI notes view shows you your specific MIDI notes within a piano roll view format. So the pitch of the note is determined by the note's location along the vertical axis, or rather which note it's alongside as depicted on the piano roll, right? So we can see here, there's the piano roll. We scroll down to where there are some notes here. You can see what note these notes are on. So for example, this one here, let's see, it's hard to see. It looks like I'm on an F there. So you can tell which note they're on. The length or duration of the note is depicted by the length of the note along the horizontal axis. So for example, if you look at these notes that I have here, this note is going to be longer than this note, right? So each track can depict a different range of pitches, and this range depends on the track's height and your zoom value for the track. So you can adjust the track height, and you'll notice that the notes that you can see along the vertical axis will change based on the height of the track. So I'll just kind of adjust this track height, and you can see that happen. So see how now I can see more notes and fewer if I make the track less tall. Excuse me. So you can then also adjust the current zoom value in order to change how big of a note range is displayed by clicking on either the top part or the bottom part of the MIDI zoom button. So this button is in the zoom options section of your edit window toolbar, and it's to the right of the audio zoom button with the waveform icon on it. So the MIDI zoom button has an icon that's composed of rectangles that represent your MIDI notes. So I'll just show you that button really quickly here. So here's the button. So we can click on the top to change the zoom values, or click on the bottom, and you'll see your MIDI data change accordingly. So if you click on the up arrow at the top of the button, it will zoom in on your MIDI, which will decrease the range of MIDI notes that you see, but it will increase the size of the notes on your screen, right? So we just saw that happen. So we click on the top, and you see that happen. Zoom out a little. Now, if you click on the down arrow at the bottom of this button, then it will zoom out on your MIDI, which will increase the range of MIDI notes that you see, but it will decrease the size of the notes on your screen. And we just saw that happen, but I'll show you again. There you go. So anyway, this small keyboard to the left of your track data will also let you scroll up and down along the keyboard to see different range of notes. So you just click on the up or down arrows on the edges of that keyboard to move along the keyboard. And that's just another way to display a different set of notes. I'll show you here. So this little arrow, it's hard to see. It's so tiny. Here, I'll zoom in a little for you. And then there's a down arrow here too, so I can go down along the keyboard to find my notes. Another thing to notice is that if you have notes that are on your track but not within the current note view, then you'll see a single pixel line at the top or the bottom of the display, and that will depict in which direction those notes are. So if you noticed earlier when I was up in the higher note range, you can see these single pixel lines where my notes are, and that's because I have notes below this display on the keyboard. So if I go down, I can see those. So while in this notes view, you can also listen to or audition any pitch on your MIDI keyboard by clicking on a note that's within your notes view. So I'll just try that out really quickly here. I'm going to get my grabber tool, and you click and you can see and hear it. You can also audition a note by clicking on the note within the piano keyboard towards the head of your track to the left of your track data. So just like clicking on the actual MIDI note, you can click on this note here and you can hear it. So using these methods to audition your notes, we'll play the note using whatever virtual instrument or outboard device that you have the MIDI data routed towards, right? So now let's look at the MIDI clips view. So I'm just going to click on that track view selector below the solo, mute, and record enable buttons in your edit window, and I'm going to choose clips just to switch into that clips view here. So there you go. But again, you can toggle between the notes and clips views by making sure your edit cursor is on the desired track and then holding control and hitting minus. Or if you're on a Windows machine, you just hit start and minus. So by default, Pro Tools places your MIDI data in MIDI clips view. In MIDI clips view, you'll notice MIDI notes will be grouped together into clips, just like you see audio data grouped together into clips. Now, MIDI clips hold together any of your MIDI data that falls within the clip's boundaries. So you might also see notes that extend beyond the boundaries of their clip, but as long as the attack starts before the clip boundary, the note will be included in that clip. So this means that if you do something like you move the clip, the whole note will be moved with that clip. And I can make a breakpoint partway through a note in one of these clips to show you that. So I'm just going to zoom in so we can easily make that breakpoint. So I'm just going to hit B to break. You can do Command E to break as well. I'm going to switch to my grabber tool and zoom out a bit. And now I'm going to take that clip and separate it. And you can see how the note extends beyond that. But if I move this, it moves the whole note with it. So anyway, in clips view, you view specific notes, but you can't actually edit individual notes in this view. However, MIDI clips view is good for quickly rearranging song sections and phrases. So basically, you can select, trim, cut, or copy MIDI clips in this view in much the same way that you can select, trim, cut, or copy audio clips. So another thing to note is that if you have zoom toggle active when you're holding control and hitting minus, or start and minus if you're on Windows, it will not toggle between the notes and clips view, but rather it will toggle between the notes view and the velocity view. So to view that, just press the zoom toggle button to highlight it in blue, which means it's active. And the zoom toggle button is the button with those four arrows pointing out in the four cardinal directions, and it's located just below your zoom tool. So I'm just going to click on that really quickly for you. So now I'm in that option, right? And then if you just hold control and press minus, you'll see that this keyboard shortcut now toggles between notes view and velocity view, and it's not between notes view and clips view. So control and minus here. Oh, you know what? I'm going to make this track taller here. Control and minus. See, notes and velocity view. And you can see that over here again. Cool. So, let's see. So, I guess it's a good time to discuss velocity view. So, if you didn't get into a velocity view using the last keyboard shortcut, then just click on that track view selector and select velocity. So, I'm going to do that. I'm just clicking and then selecting velocity. So, in the MIDI velocity view, you can see the attack velocity for each of your MIDI notes. The velocity value is depicted by a vertical line indicator that's called a velocity stalk. And these velocity stalks are these lines with a diamond or like a tilted square shape at the end of it, whatever you want to call it. So you can drag one or more velocity stalks up or down to change the velocity of their corresponding note or notes. So the longer the velocity stalk, the harder the velocity of the note that it's connected to. So I can just kind of show you that. Oops. So here's a velocity stalk for this note. Oh, I have these all highlighted, so it moved all of them. But if I wanted to unhighlight, I could then control them individually. Like that. So now let's talk about the MIDI editor window views. As we've mentioned in previous episodes, you can also view MIDI data in more detail within the MIDI editor window. In this window, you can display MIDI automation and MIDI data for multiple tracks at once, including all of your MIDI tracks, instrument tracks, and aux inputs. If you display data for multiple tracks here, though, your MIDI editor window will superimpose your MIDI notes from these separate tracks over one another, and these notes will all be displayed superimposed in the MIDI notes pane. You can also display controller lanes and automation information at the bottom of the MIDI editor window. So here you'll see any velocity stocks, volume automation, or other automation, and continuous controller data that you have displayed. So anyway, you can open up the MIDI editor window by going to Window, and then you just select MIDI editor. And we've done this in previous episodes, but we'll do it again here. So Window, and then we're going to find MIDI editor here. And now it's open. So you can toggle the MIDI editor window on and off by holding the Control button and then hitting the equals button, or by holding Start and pressing equals if you're in Windows. In a Windows machine, right? So I'm just going to show you that really quickly. So let's see, it's going to be Control and then equals. Here we go. So that'll just bring it, it'll open the window or it'll close the window, right? Or if you're in Clips view, you can also double click with the grabber tool on any MIDI clip in your edit window. So just make sure that you're in Clips view and then double click with your grabber tool on a MIDI clip to open up that MIDI editor window. So I'm just going to close this out. And then I'm going to put this into Clips view and double click, and it opens up that MIDI editor. So then once you're in the MIDI editor window, you can toggle between two different views. And we've touched upon these briefly, but they're Notes view and Notation view. So to do this, you just click on the Notation Display Enable button, which is the button with notes on it in the upper left-hand corner of your MIDI editor window. If the button is blue, then it's in Notation view. And if it's not lit up blue, then it will be in Notes view. And it's very easy to tell because your window will change drastically, as you can see here. Okay, so these views are great for displaying data from any of the displayed MIDI and or instrument tracks. So let's leave the MIDI world for now and return to the world of audio data. So we have various ways to move about and navigate our session in order to edit audio. So in order to be efficient in Pro Tools, it's important to learn some techniques for navigating and selecting audio in order to edit in Pro Tools. So this stuff will really help you speed up your workflow in Pro Tools and look more professional. So let's start with a macro view of your session and talk about your universe view. Your universe view can be displayed towards the top of your edit window. And I believe I have it open in this session. So I'm just going to close out of this MIDI window. And let's see, here it is, the universe view. So it's this top part here. So it shows you the entire length and depth of your session in a tiny little view area that represents and depicts all of the tracks and all of the data on the tracks that are displayed within your session. It shows you all the audio, MIDI, and video on all your tracks that are displayed and not hidden. So you'll see these horizontal lines within the universe view, and these horizontal lines represent the data on your tracks. And you'll probably notice that the color of the clips on the tracks will actually match the color of their respective lines in the universe view. Excuse me. You might also notice that tracks that cannot hold audio, MIDI, or video clips are represented in the universe view as blank areas. So this type of track includes aux inputs, master faders, and even VCA tracks if you're in Pro Tools HD. So we mentioned this in an earlier episode, but you can toggle the universe view on and off by clicking on the little arrow below where the universe view appears and to the top right corner of your ruler's view area. So I can show you that. It's this little tiny arrow right here. And if I click on it, it toggles the universe view on and off. You can also toggle the universe view on and off by going to view and then selecting other displays and then selecting universe. So I can show you that too really quickly. So I'm going to find view, other displays, and see how universe is checked because it's active right now. We can see it in our edit window. So I can click on it and it just hides it. And then I can bring it right back up. So you might think that universe view is good to display, but you might also want to change the size of it, right? So in that case, you can also resize the universe view. You either resize the universe view to show more of the edit window, or you can resize the height of the universe view. So to resize the height of the universe view, just hover between the top of the ruler's view area and the bottom of the universe view until your mouse turns to a double-headed arrow, and then just click and drag to adjust the height of the universe view. So I'll show you that. So see how it becomes this double arrow? I can click and drag to make my universe view bigger or smaller. So if you resize the universe view height this way so that it's below its minimum size, though, then you'll notice that the universe view will disappear and it will toggle off completely. So I can try to do that really quickly. So if I drag it too small, it just disappears. And if you then toggle the universe view back on using that arrow that we were using earlier or any other method that we were using, it will toggle back on and into the height that it was before you toggled it off with this method. So if I click here, it brings it back to that full size height that I had. And again, just make it disappear. Oh, I didn't drag it small enough. And then you can just bring it back up. So you'll also notice that there's a light rectangle within the universe view that shows you what section of this universe view that you're looking at within the tracks view section. So this rectangle is called the current view indicator. So I'll just point that out for you. It's this rectangle right here. It's the lighter space here. That's what I'm seeing in the tracks view area, which is right here, right? So this section is represented within this lighter box that's outlined in white. You'll notice that the area that's highlighted by this current view indicator changes as you zoom in or zoom out on your session's track display area, right? So I'll just zoom a little bit really quickly. Let's see. Sorry, my computer seems to be lagging here. There we go. Now we're seeing it. It's because I was at the beginning of the session. But anyway, so you can see it shrink and grow based on what you're viewing, right? So it will also adjust and move accordingly if you change your session by hiding or deleting tracks, by making new tracks, or changing track heights. So you can move around in your session using this universe view. And you just click anywhere within the universe view to move your current view indicator, and thus your current view in the edit window, right, to that location. So if right now we're looking at this part of our session, if I want to look over here near this marker here, I can click, and now you can see that we're looking at this area with this marker. So you can just click around to travel within your session. If I want to view the ends of these clips, I can quickly click there to see that. So you can also click in the current view indicator and drag it to a new section of your session that you want to view. So it's very similar. It's like the same concept, right? But instead of clicking like we just did, you click and hold, and then you can drag it around. It's pretty simple. So this method can be used to scroll and move about both horizontally and vertically within your session. And it's very easy and intuitive of a method for quickly moving about within your session. So now that we've navigated around your session using the universe view and you've settled on an area that you want to edit, let's talk about different types of selecting. So there are two types of selections in Pro Tools. We've already mentioned them before. So the two options are timeline selections and edit selections. So we've mentioned these types of selections before in this course for other purposes, but basically timeline selections are made within your ruler's view in your edit window and control your playback or record range, right? And edit selections are the selections that you make with your edit cursor on your tracks, and they set a range for any edit that you make. So that's it for segment 2 of today's episode, but we'll take a quick break and then we'll start up again with segment 3 discussing edit selections.